Hey everybody, it's Chris from SafeWire, and I'm with
Hey, it's Nicole with SafeWire.
Nicole. Let's jump right into it. What are we talking about today?
Man, this one's really sad. So this is a lady down in Florida. This happened at the end of February this year, and she wired over about $120,000 to the hackers, and it was her retirement home that she was going to move into. And unfortunately, the money's gone. So, I mean, this one's really just devastating because I know when I plan on retiring, I don't want to have to go back to work. And unfortunately, this lady has stated she's lost sleep. She can't sleep anymore. She doesn't know what her future is anymore. And it's all because of wire fraud and this problem that's going on in the industry nonstop.
Yeah,
Um,
that's terrible. So what happened?
this one could have been prevented. So if you read the article, this part says right here, the day before buying the home, Fontaine got an email from her realtor, or so she thought, with specific instructions to wire 122,000 to the bank so the title company could close a deal. So the first red flag there is that it came from her realtor.
Mhm.
We all know that realtors should never be handling wiring instructions. And so I think that should maybe be a message that maybe agents should start conveying. Hey, if you get wiring instructions from me, don't take them.
They're not from me, right? Like,
Right.
yeah, real estate agents at this point, most brokers that we talk to, make it very clear that if that real estate agents are not to be in any way, shape, or form communicating wire instructions. There's no, and E&O insurance, E&O coverages are not going to cover those situations either. If they're violating their brokerage policy, they're going to consider that negligence.
That's right. That's right.
So keep going.
No, so it's just crazy to me that this even happened. And honestly, we see title companies, they're still doing it all the time. We talk to title companies all the time. People are sending and receiving wiring instructions on secure. I've sat with agents before who have looked at me and said, oh my gosh, my title company just copied me on the wiring instructions. I'm like, delete it, make it go away. Don't get involved with that. But I think at that point, this was a while ago, and maybe at that point we should have said, "Hey, make sure you call your client and let them know that you will not be sending wiring instructions. So if they get anything from you, just beware."
Yeah, and this is, what happened to her is all too familiar what we're seeing, right? That there's a compromise somewhere. And in most cases, it's happening through the real estate agent's email or the consumer's email. It's happening less and less on the title company side because title companies have done a better job at preventing this. So what happens, when this problem started in 2016, 2015, when we first started seeing it, they were attacking title companies because that's where the money was transacting and that's where the biggest target was. And as a result, the last 5 or 6 years, title companies have done a better job at preventing against this. And so what the fraudsters have had to do, just like any smart criminal, is they've had to evolve and shift and change just like the solution is shifting and changing. And so they're now going throughout the transaction. It happens as early as when a property is listed, it becomes a target. So that property is listed and it gets disseminated online and through a portal on Redfin or Zillow or any of these large international portals. The fraudster now has an address, it has a price, it can find out the seller's information, they can find out the real estate agent's information. They start connecting the dots. They're very good at this. They've gotten very good at this, and eventually you're going to hit. You're eventually going to successfully infiltrate a transaction that leads to a situation like this.
Yeah, and unfortunately, right now, for them and for the consumer, these are being these new listings are popping up all the time, right? And so the market's so hot that the hacker's like, hey, this is great, this is likely to go into contract in the next week, this is great, this is like a really hot lead. It could not be served to them on a silver platter any better than that, right? Like, here's the email address. And so unfortunately for the consumer, that is really like, it's really detrimental to them because they do become a hot target at that point.
Yeah, there's that. And there's the urgency. These guys prey on emotions. They prey on sense of urgency. Imagine you are a buyer and a house hits the market, you're aggressive, you make an aggressive offer, you outbid 10, 15, 20 other people to get the house in contract. The last thing you want to do is have it fall out because you didn't send the money in a fast enough manner to where you think it's supposed to go.
Right, especially right now. And then when they do send it to the wrong person, then they're completely out of the market.
Yeah,
more than likely.
Yeah, they're screwed. One call out for this is to look for when a sense of urgency happens. That's a red flag. Anything where someone's asking you to do something immediately is a red flag, even if it's closing day, unless you're sitting at the title company and that title officer tells you, hey, I need you to do this right now. That's one thing. But any sense of urgency that comes, especially via email, that's a total red flag.
Right. Especially when they're super unavailable. I'll be in a meeting for the next hour and a half or so, but kindly do this as quick as possible. Right.
Yeah. There's an MO to all of this. Using kindly more than once in an email is a red flag. If you say kindly 7 times in an email, that might be an indication. The grammatical mistakes will improve over time, but there certainly still some red flags in there.
For sure. I think the other thing that we should look out for is last minute wiring instructions changing. So whenever they receive information that the wiring instructions have changed, they should definitely be on high alert and call the person at the title company, or if it's an attorney that's handling the closing, whoever's handling the wiring, that's who you need to call. I know it's different in every state who handles that, whether it's an escrow officer or wherever you are, find out who's handling that and make sure you verify the information.
Yeah, and make sure you're getting that contact and that phone number from a trusted source. Just Googling it is not considered a trusted source, because those websites can be spoofed. So, that's a situation where you can have your mortgage loan officer or real estate agent text you, who is my contact? What is their direct number? What is the number I need to call? Don't get that from a publicly available place unless you absolutely have to or have no other choice.
Right. Yeah. Also, inbound calls, even if your caller ID says it's from that company, these calls are spoofed. They can choose any caller ID to display, and they can choose the phone number to make it look like it's legit. You cannot accept an inbound call. It must be you dialing the number of the person and it has to be a verified source.
Do you remember that story we heard a couple of years ago about the title company that happened to? So this wasn't anything that was this wasn't publicly available information anywhere, because it never became a public situation, but it was a real situation that happened to a title company in Ohio, where a title company employee had downloaded accidentally some spyware on his or her computer. And so for those that aren't familiar with spyware means, is if you download something that you shouldn't, it can install software on your computer that can literally spy and track everything you are doing. And so in this case, this was a fairly sophisticated one that occurred. There was spyware downloaded on the title employee's computer. They didn't know it. They were getting ready to close a $1.2 million transaction or something. It was north of $1 million. And the hacker was monitoring how this title employee worked. They were an escrow agent in the office, which means they handle the money. And they were just watching how they work, what they do. And this employee, what they would do is they would have in their web browser, they would have a shortcut to the bank where they would click on the bank login shortcut, and it would take them to a login page for the bank. They would click on it, they put their information in, And then that's what they would use to wire monies. So the fraudster watched, they saw how they operated, they saw what they did, and they then went and replicated a whole entire web page. It looked just like this bank's web page, and they changed the shortcut link in their browser. So they clicked on that shortcut, and it was supposed to take them to the real bank login. It took them to a fake bank login that looked the same, and they punched in their username and password and got an error message. And just as they were getting that error message, the phone rang, and the caller ID on the phone showed up as the bank name. It wasn't the bank, it was the fraudster, who then proceeded to walk them through sending that money to a fake account.
Yep.
So,
I know that happened. I talked to an employee of that company and they verified it.
yeah, it's and in that case, the title company had they however they had to, they figured out how to get that loss covered to where it didn't become a publicly known thing, because that's the other side of this. If it does happen to your business and you're a title company, for example, you don't want to report this because, real estate people talk. They talk about good experiences, and they talk about bad experiences, and nothing is going to get them to talk more than if someone steals money from your client.
It's true. It's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one throws me off every single time. There's a few stories that I have heard that have definitely thrown me off.
Well, it's terrifying. I mean, that's the whole reason we came up with this product, SafeWire, is because I, own a title company. And in 2016, it scared the crap out of me that one of our people could just be having a bad day and they could suddenly wire hundreds of thousands of dollars to the wrong place. And that could put us out of business.
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of title companies are smaller, and over $1 million loss could put a lot of companies out of business. A lot of the title companies in the country, to be honest.
Yeah. So
and it's important to protect your business.
Which is what we are trying to do: protect people and protect businesses. So, well, thanks for sharing that one, Nicole. What anything else that you want to talk about to recap that? Any takeaways that we want to go through that are red flags we should be calling out? I know we called a couple of them out, but
no red flags. I mean, I think we called a couple of them out. I would say that just going back to talking about title companies and how they've really put processes in place, I've talked to a lot of agents and talked to them about wire fraud, and they are under the assumption that the title company is protecting them. And so we found that this is happening before the title company is even dealing with the wiring instructions. So it's important that they are also vetting out their title companies to make sure that the title company is using a secure solution to protect their clients as well as them and their business.
Yeah, don't
protected.
Ask questions. If you're a consumer, ask questions. If you're an agent, ask questions of the companies you're working with. They should be able to answer simple questions like, what are your wire fraud prevention processes? Have you lost money to wire fraud? What happens if wire fraud does occur? These are all questions that people should be able to articulate answers for. If they can't, then again, another red flag. God forbid this stuff does happen. What do they do to get the money back? And there are processes for that too. These are all very time sensitive. If and when it does happen, you got to move quick and you got to know what you're doing.
Every time. Yep.
Well, thanks, Nicole. Stay safe out there. And if anybody wants to get a hold of you, Nicole, or me, but let's start with you, how would they do that?
They can go ahead and email me at Nicole@safewire.com. That's NICOLE at SAFEWIRE.com.
And I am Chris at SafeWire.com, but Nicole is the one with all of the answers. So that's where I would start.
Happy to answer. Happy to help.
All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.